You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode.
Before we get started on this episode, here's a not-so-short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster nor the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak to a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's mold education courses, such as Mold 101 and the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit, by going to cnccontractorservices.com. Again, check out his mold education courses at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. We have my wife, Cassandra, almost, pretty close into holiday season, aren't we?
We are, but I'm actually not thinking about that. We're really close to my birthday month.
That's January.
I know. So I'm already thinking about it.
Our listeners are probably like, really?
All month long.
Anyhow, today's topic is avoiding toxic mold during the holiday season. So for the most part, I guess I don't pay that much attention. How many people do you think travel? Obviously, it's millions during the holiday season. A lot.
Lots of people, even if it's just to go to an Airbnb or family and meet up there, which opens up a whole other can of worms with toxic mold.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what I was saying is people that just drive to even their grandma's house or parents or siblings or cousins or wherever. I'll bet a good majority of people do.
Yes, a lot.
We don't, but...
Yeah, no, but a lot of people, make it a thing to go to somebody else's house for the holidays. And whenever you're going to somebody else's house, obviously you're exposed to whatever their indoor air quality is.
Yeah. So the first question is, how can our listeners avoid relatives or lodging? First thing that came to my mind is avoid your mother-in-law's house.
Well, your mother-in-law's house does have mold in it that she refuses to address, so I'm not surprised.
She does?
Yes.
Oh.
Refuses to address.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Not sure the last time I've been there, so anyhow, but yeah, that's kind of a loaded question, like how can you avoid that? But, there's scenarios we can go through, what if it was mold in an Airbnb or whatnot? Like, I guess my point is every situation's unique. Everything's going to be different. When it is a family member, not just because you don't like, and I like my mother-in-law, so it is an easy excuse to be like, well, we're not going to our house because there's mold, but can cause other problems with your spouse or family members if you're telling your mom, hey, we're not coming over because there's mold in your house.
Well, and I think it also causes problems when you go over to other people's homes for the holiday and you're wearing 5 masks in their home. It's almost like you're telling
going back to the COVID days.
It's like you're telling them, yeah, your house is dirty and unclean, and to stay here, I have to basically bring all of my things to not be exposed to your air.
Yeah, I mean, so that kind of brings up a question, in your opinion, how would one of our listeners deal with that? If they know, their husband's not wanting to go to their mom's house, not because he just doesn't like her, but it is because of mold. Like, how would you suggest they deal with that?
Well, I think you've said that growing up, your family would sometimes do events in a location that's not anybody's house, whether that's
Yeah,
the
like at a
hall in a church.
church
Yeah,
or,
like
yeah.
sometimes the easiest way to not offend people is to say, why don't we all congregate and meet at a neutral location that's bigger for everybody, and then we can all go back to our homes after it.
Yeah, and like when I was a child, so my mom's side of the family's huge. We would go to a church and do it in the gym. Like,
Exactly.
so could there be mold issues in there? Well, probably, maybe, I don't know. But it was in a big area. It wasn't in somebody's house.
Correct. In a big open area, so there's airflow potential that might be better than a 1,300 square foot home. Also, everybody has their space. Everybody's not there for 3 days. They're there for one evening or
Right.
one day.
Yep.
And so it might be helpful to do that. But then there's also the scenario where people rent an Airbnb and they get to the Airbnb that they've paid for in full and they find mold. Or they
Yeah.
smell a damp smell and you're kind of stuck because
Yeah, and then we do get Airbnbs when I'm on jobs, but that's not that often. So I'm not sure how that would work for an Airbnb. Would they just refund you your money, or?
yeah, but you'd still be stuck in that Airbnb with the mold.
Well, no.
Yeah.
If they refunded your money, I'm assuming you would leave. But kind of goes back to the subject of what we were talking about in a previous episode. Like, selling your home because there's mold issues isn't always mean you're going to go to a home without mold.
Correct.
What if you get out of that Airbnb and go to a hotel that's got mold?
Or what if you go to a hotel that's already packed full and there's no other rooms at the inn,
Yeah.
and you get a room that has mold in it? You're kind of stuck.
Yeah, that could be kind of tricky. We've done episodes. It's probably been a long time ago. What to do if you're dealing with mold, like in a hotel. But it might not always be that easy for you to just switch rooms.
Especially during the holidays.
Exactly, because they could be overbooked or whatnot. And that does kind of bring up something like, so for our listeners, could you just tough it out in a moldy Airbnb? I mean,
it depends.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest it, but, maybe try to spend more time outside. I wouldn't want to walk around my Airbnb with a mask on, would you?
No, but I think this is also where boundaries become a really important thing. If you know you have a child who has pandas or pans and is sick, then you have every right to say to the family members, either we're not coming or I think everybody should come to my house. You can't be afraid to have those conversations.
Yeah, and it brings it back full circle where I think, if it's being used for the right reasons, that's great. But I think, especially people that don't get along with certain family members could weaponize that. But, that's not in our control. It brings up another thing as far as like cross-contamination. So what if you do go to your mother's home and I have Lyme disease or some autoimmune disorder and you're bringing mycotoxins back to the house?
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's a big problem.
It is. But I think there's mycotoxins are in the air, so there's not really anything you can do to avoid that if you're going to go over to that house where the mycotoxins are.
And so for our listeners, I guess my answer to that is, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, there are rabbit holes that you could go down that could be endless. And I guess my point is I get this question a lot. Like, so what do I do about me and my daughter who are sick or get sick from mold exposure? Do we not go to my mom's because she has a mold issue? Well, I tell them that's a decision you have to make. But then the next question is what about our belongings in our house? Are we bringing those mycotoxins from the mother's home back to ours? You could be, but I'm not an alarmist. Like, I believe cross-contamination is a big concern. But I think you could go down rabbit holes like, what if there's mycotoxins at the grocery store you go to?
100%. Or where you work or where your kids go to school or in your car. I mean, you could take this to 1,000 different places. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to make some personal decisions about the risk, your level of risk tolerance.
Yeah. Yeah. We mentioned Heather, the health coach.
Yes.
She just posted something, and it's been a while ago, but I think it's called the vagus nerve.
Yes.
So for our listeners, and this is kind of why I wanted to go down that rabbit hole, I think, and I see it a lot on Facebook, I think some people get a little too extreme with the mold and mycotoxins. But on the other hand, I don't suffer from that kind of stuff, so I don't have to deal with that personally. But I think if you let it get to you and it rewires your brain, that's what it's going to do.
Yes, but I also think that stressing about anything just weakens your immune system anyway. So you have to make a conscious decision about what you're going to stress about. If going to your grandmother's house is going to stress you out so much that you bring a weakened immune system to a house that you know probably has mold issues, then it's probably wise you don't go.
Yeah. No, I agree. I guess what I was trying to get at too is a lot of my clients, when they experience this whole mold sickness thing, they have to retrain their brain to be like, I can't be only focused or be so myopic with mold that it runs my life.
Correct, because at the end of the day, if you can do something about the mold situation, then why worry? And if you can't do anything about the mold situation, why worry?
No, I agree.
So it's really about making a decision about what you can control and what you can't control and doing what you can control.
Yeah, it brings up another subject that, when it comes to cross-contamination concerns, let's say you go over to your mom's and you come back here and you bring those mycotoxins. Those are little invisible particles that we can't see. The reason I don't make a big deal out of it is the fact that those mycotoxins, as far as I'm aware of, and I think scientifically they will agree, they cannot reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's the same even with the mold spores, because that would be the next question. Like a client would say to me, well, Steve, what about the mold spores? What if, my mother-in-law's house has Stachybotrys and those spores are brought into our home? Well, those spores are brought in, but they're dormant.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for those spores to colonize and reproduce, you have to have a moisture source, a food source, along with that. So my point is it's like bringing grass seed into your house. Doesn't mean the grass is going to grow in your house.
Exactly.
You have to water it.
You have to have the right circumstances in which for things to grow.
Yep. For the listeners that are really freaked out over cross-contamination, I don't want to say it's not a concern, but I think you have to take in perspective what the likeliness is of it reproducing.
Well, and I think you've got to, especially during the holidays, you've got to do your due diligence. Like if you're going to go to a family member's house, or even if you're going to rent an Airbnb, bring your own blankets, bring your own pillows, bring your own towels.
Yeah.
And then when you're leaving their house, bag those suckers up and take them to a laundromat and wash them before you bring them back in your house. Like there's certain things you can do if you want to go to that level to reduce the risk.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like you said, you have to assess it and say, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes the best decision is not to, like if you knew all of your family was sick with some bug that has everybody in bed for a week and you were planning to go see them for the holidays, more than likely once you find that out, you're like, no, we're not coming. Right. Sometimes that's the decision you need to make.
Yep. A lot of different subjects we covered there, but for our listener, key takeaway is with cross-contamination, it is a concern. Don't be freaked out by it. And for the men out there listening, you can use the excuse. You can say, Steve from the Toxic Mold Podcast said I don't have to go to my mother-in-law.
Well, and at the end of the day, don't go any place you actually don't want to go.
Exactly. All right. Well, we appreciate all you listeners. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you're concerned about toxic mold and the health of your home, mycotoxin testing could be your next step. Visit CNC Contractor Services to discover how easy it is to test for harmful mycotoxins, compounds released by toxic molds. These comprehensive testing kits can help you identify hidden threats in your air, dust, and surfaces. When you purchase mycotoxin testing from Steve Worsley, you can also opt to get expert testing and interpretation directly from Steve. Take control of your indoor air quality today. Check out mycotoxin testing at cnccontractorservices.com.